Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob. You've delivered us 2 questions, we're going to deliver you 2 answers, and hopefully we're all going to feel a lot better for it. It remains super simple to get your questions in. Rob, just in case it's not burnt on everyone's conscience yet, do you want to run them through it, how to do it?
I will. So you can give us a call, 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. You should know that by now. Or you can go to thepropertyhub.net/ask. So super easy. And by submitting your question, you'll be following in the fine footsteps of our first questioner today, Gordon.
Hi Rob and Rob. Gordon from Edinburgh here. I'm starting out in property investing and finding all your podcasts and courses very helpful. I'm currently renting my own property and living with my fiancée. We're planning to buy a few properties over the next few years. If we catch some downturns in the market, great. But in the longer term, my question relates to the end of the next 18-year property cycle. I'm wondering if growth was gaining a lot around 2025 to 26. Would this be a good time to remortgage, as presumably banks would lend at this time, and I could pull a decent chunk of money out in order to have capital post-crash, so that I would have more options to buy, find a mortgage when limited lenders are about? Is this a risky strategy? Should I be worried about over-leveraging? Or worse, as we're nearing the end of a major economic debt cycle, do I really want to hold large amounts of cash, which could lose significant value when that time comes around? Thanks a lot for your advice in advance. Look forward to attend my first Edinburgh meetup soon. Cheers.
Thank you, Gordon. Great question. We love talking about the 18-year cycle. Don't need too much encouragement. And this is a really interesting angle on it as well. This is something that not a lot of other people will see because they're not aware of the cycle. So what you're talking about is buying the dips if you can, building up the portfolio. Then when things get to their peak, instead of expanding your portfolio, expanding your debt by borrowing against the increased value of the properties you've got. That means that you'd be putting cash in the bank, which you could then use to hoover up all the cheap properties when everyone's panicking on the other side. It's a really interesting strategy, and I think it's worth highlighting that almost nobody is going to be thinking of this. By being aware of the cycle and the different possibilities, it's going to put you in a completely different place from everybody else. By knowing about the cycle, whether you decide to do this or not, it puts you in a very different position from everyone else, and you're already miles better off because you're going to be aware that you shouldn't be buying at silly prices at the peak of the cycle. Should you then be borrowing at the peak? Well, it's not a terrible idea. It's going to depend, of course, on your personal risk tolerance and what you think might happen and how you feel about debt in general. But one thing's for sure, having cash when things have crashed and everyone's panicking and trying to offload at any price is a very good position to be in. If you've got cash and it's not debt, then that's probably the best situation to be in. But if people are throwing cheap money at you and you can take that and you can buy assets at a knockdown price and you know because of the cycle that they're going to come back up again, then that certainly doesn't sound like a terrible idea. On the face of it, it seems risky. But you could argue that it's actually safer to have the cash in the bank where you can just keep it there as a buffer, or you can spend it if the right opportunity comes along, rather than having it as equity where it could get wiped out at any time and you don't have any control over it. So that's not going to be the right thing for everyone to do. It might not be the right thing for you to do. There's a lot of psychology in there, but potentially a very interesting approach that knowledge of the 18-year cycle opens up for you.
An alternative option for you, Gordon, or for anybody else listening thinking, I want a piece of this, is reviewing your portfolio towards the top of the cycle. So if you've managed to build up a sizable portfolio by then, you may be looking at it and going, I've got some great performers, but with everyone's portfolios, mine included, you're going to have some in there that just haven't done as well as you'd hoped. And that's okay. That's part of being a property investor. Some go on to be bigger winners and some just don't perform as you imagined. So this is a great time to have a clear out. Keep the gems, keep the good stuff, but at the end of this cycle, people will literally buy anything, so sell your rubbish, sell the stuff that's not performed for you, or those troublesome properties, have a clear out, build your cash up that way, and you're good to go when the cycle resets itself. However you do it, I think it's fantastic that you're thinking ahead, and your awareness of the cycle is allowing you to do that. Now, our recent 18-year property cycle episodes have obviously stimulated some questions, because we've got another one in from Mick.
Hiya Rob and Rob, it's Mick from Preston in Lancashire. I'm loving the podcast as always. I've already made a property investment using the info I've learned from you guys and that's going really well. But my question today is regarding the 18-year property cycle, which I know you love to discuss, and remortgages. I'm sure all your savvy listeners will no doubt be holding tight with their properties towards the peak of the cycle. So I'd like to ask, with all the 2, 3, 5-year mortgage deals that are on the market, when would be the best time to remortgage in relation to the property cycle? And should we be taking out longer period remortgages earlier on in the cycle to take advantage of all the lower interest rates? So if you could give us some information on that, that'd be great. Thanks, guys.
Great question, Mick. And this is why I love the show, because this is probably stuff we wouldn't have covered, but you've seen a gap that we've missed, and now we can fill it for you and for everyone else. So mortgages and the type of mortgages you should be taking out during the 18-year property cycle towards the last 5 years. Well, the quick answer for me would be the shorter term mortgages, but let me explain why. As we go through the cycle towards the end, interest rates will start to rise. So you could say, oh, why wouldn't you lock in? Because what you'd expect to happen is interest rates will rise, but after a crash, then they will drop again. And if you've locked in for a long time on a higher interest rate, you may be missing out the opportunity to get into lower interest rates if you're locked in for, say, 5 years. So let's say 2024, you lock in for 5 years, and then the market corrects at 2026, interest rates plummet, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of that. So for me, I would just keep them ticking over on short-term mortgages. Yes, they're going to go up during the latter stages of the cycle, but what we'd then expect to see is after the crash, them to reset again, drop down, and you'll be able to get mortgages at a lower rate. So make no promises, but that's what we would do.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Mick. Great questions. And what a treat for us, a couple of cycle-themed questions. And if you're not fully up to speed with the cycle, go over to thepropertyhub.net/podcast, type cycle into the search box, and you'll find a couple of episodes that we've done on this topic recently, and a couple from the previous years as well. Hopefully from today's questions, you're getting a sense of how powerful this framework can be and the opportunities it opens up if you fully understand it. So that's us done for another week. If you've got a question of your own, go over to thepropertyhub.net/ask, send it our way. We'll be back with more questions next week, and before then, with the Property Podcast on Thursday. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.